Hello, welcome back to another garage video here. Today we're just going to be taking a look at the rear end here, placing the fuel line, fuel pump, fuel filter. I got a rear end gasket I need to change out, and replacing the bolts in the rear end too, which that one's going to be fun. But yeah, thank you all for coming along and hope you stick around. All right, and here's the rear end of the Legend car. As you can see, we got our fuel cell right here. We got the rear end housing with the rear gear. We got a battery back here, shocks, springs, suspension components, a little bit of wiring just to the battery up to the kill switch up here. And yeah, nothing too complicated with it really. So first order of business tonight, we're gonna be replacing the fuel pump and the fuel filter, and then connecting it to the fuel cell down here. And obviously we're missing our fuel line with the fuel filter. I have already taken that out. This is the old fuel filter, and we're going to replace it with our new one, which I have right here. Same, you know, part number, same model and everything, nothing crazy. It's a fuel filter. I don't know what you expect. But we will also be replacing the fuel pump, which I was gonna do before last year, but decided to skip out on it because of costs. And as I've said in previous videos, these are some of the decisions you have to make when you're running on a tight budget. You know, what do you spend money on? What deserves to have money spent on? Last year I determined that the fuel pump is good for next year, which it was. It lasted all year. I had no fuel issues or anything. But figured I'd get the new fuel pump here and make sure everything's all 100% good for next year. Second order of business is going to be changing out the rear end housing gasket that's right here. As you might have seen on the floor, there's some drips here. We have been leaking oil for honestly months now out of the rear end. Just needs a gasket replacement, because with the Legend car vibrating as much as it does, these bolts like to not completely back out, but you know, loosen up enough to where you do leak oil, and then when you go and tighten them, you know, mess with the gasket, and then you just have a constant oil leak. So to get to the gasket, of course, obviously we need to take out all these bolts here. We need to disconnect the drive shaft here, and then just replace the gasket and then bolt everything back on. And then last order of business is going to be replacing all of the suspension bolts in the rear. It's good practice to do at the end of every year before you go into the following year, just because these Legend cars, they do move around a lot. There are some stresses placed in certain areas in the suspension, so it can cause these bolts to bend, worst case break. But figure if one of these bolts break, you'll know pretty immediately. But we use grade 8 bolts, and they will bend before they break, so it's always good to, you know, take these bolts out, see if there is any bend in them, and just replace them outright. And the front suspension will get the same treatment. We'll go through every bolt, replacing all of them. I'm probably going to do that at the same time as I'm reworking the brake system, replacing the ball joints here. Yeah, all that's gonna be done at the same time in the future video. And yes, I know I still have the old engine in there. I haven't gotten around to that yet, but in due time. So this is what we're working with when it comes to the fuel lines. As you can see, I messed this one up pretty good. This is what went from the fuel cell to the fuel filter. The old fuel filter, for whatever reason, was pretty stuck in there pretty good, and there's a fuel filter that I installed too last year, so I don't know what I did, but it really did not want to come out, so I just took it out with the fitting to the fuel cell, and now have this. which is fine because I just went and got a 2-foot long piece of braided fuel line. So we're just going to cut it up into these lengths here, replace them. This one's going to go to the fuel cell itself. We have the new fuel filter between these two, and then this is going to go to the fuel pump, which I still currently have installed, and then it'll go to the existing fuel line here, which I looked at and everything all throughout. No leaks or anything, so no reason to replace that one. It is important to note, drain your fuel cells before messing with the fuel system. I have a pump that I use to take the fuel out of the fuel cell just out the top here, and I put it in one of my fuel jugs over there. Note that there is a pretty significant amount of fuel still in the fuel cell, even though you think you might have pumped it all. So when I undid that fitting down there, asked me how I found that out. But nothing bad came of that, so oh well. So as you can see here, we did tape up our new fuel line here. I'm not exactly sure what kind of tape this is. It just came on my my new fuel line on both ends, and it was on my existing fuel line, same ones when I bought the car, so I wasn't sure exactly what purpose that tape served. Come to find out, it's just so that when you cut it, none of the braiding, the metal braiding comes out and pinches you, and it sucks. As you can, yeah, you can definitely see with this piece, like, I don't want to touch the end of that. So I don't know what kind of tape this is, so I just got some electrical tape, and I'm gonna hope that's good enough. All right, so we got our hose cutters here. We're gonna do our best to kind of just match up the original lengths, because I'm not rerouting this fuel line anywhere else where I really need to worry. So let's see how well I can do this without cutting myself on this frayed freaking end, because I don't know how to get a old fuel filter out. But yeah, we'll just take it right here and then try to cut through. All right, never mind. That is taking way too much effort. Doesn't help that I probably have the wrong tools, but I'm kind of working with what I got here. Yeah, that braiding is a little too tough to cut through right now, so I'm just going to use these little bits of fuel line that came with the fuel filter. Unfortunately, this one's a little too small to reach from the fuel filter to where the fuel pump's mounted. So we're probably just going to reuse this fuel line here. There's nothing wrong with it. I didn't screw it up as bad as I did this one, so it's fine, I guess. However, consulting the INEX rulebook, steel braided fuel line is mandatory, so there goes that plan, I guess. Alright, so I gave up these. Just went to Harbor Freight and got one of these cutter tools. So rather than trying to cut through all that, I'm just going to start over on the other end. Also to find out electrical tape is okay to use. Not that I think it's a huge deal or anything, it's just to keep the frays together, but I guess another good thing to have would be a vise, but we'll see what happens. And I need 2 hands for this, so I can't really record, unfortunately. Remember, gloves and safety glasses, of course. Oh, no vise, so this is the kind of innovation that you're going to get here. So this little makeshift cutting table wasn't a bad idea. I mean, it worked well enough. Just tape the line down, lean up against the toolbox, and cut through. Issue being, 2 big issues being that, one, my cuts were terrible. I got stabbed a few times, even with gloves, by the metal braiding there. And the other big issue was I think I got a size too small. Didn't want to fit on the ends of the fuel filter, whereas these little tiny pieces that came with the fuel filter, these fit fine. So it's whatever size this is, 10 millimeter, 3/8 inch. So all right, old fuel pump is out of the car, all disconnected and everything, and we have a new fuel pump here. Now, these are very different shapes, and plus additional hardware over there. But they do have the same part number, Autobest part 4027, and we see wherever it was, Autobest 40 something, but this one's just 4027. There's no F on it in the part number. Well, the box says F4027. Now we're just gonna go with that. So I don't know if it's just me, but whenever something has the same part number, I assume they're gonna be pretty, you know, the same. But that's not the case here. Autobest apparently updated their design and kept the same part number. And it makes it a little bit difficult installing. It's not straightforward because there's this piece here with a nozzle that goes to the fuel filter. Looks something similar to what's on the end of the old fuel pump, but trying to screw it on the new fuel pump, now this came with it, by the way, so like it screws on about that much or so, but see there's a lot of thread there, and I only got like maybe a full turn on it, and then it gets really stiff and it doesn't want to screw in really any more than this. Even when I have a wrench and try to screw it on, it's not really wanting to. And I had plumber's tape on the threads a little bit ago and took it off because I assumed, well, I guess maybe it's doesn't need plumber's tape. But that's about as much as I can get it. And the box isn't that much help either. It's got a whole different, well, what I presume to be a fuel pump on it, just a generic picture. I don't know if I'm just stupid or something. That could also be a problem. But yeah, I am probably going to have to research this a little bit more. So this is more what I was expecting. So yes, I did go get another fuel pump in the hopes that it would indeed be different. I think I threw the old box away, but the old box looked just like this, had the same part number and everything. So lining them all up, yeah, I don't know if they just accidentally shipped me the wrong part number, if the manufacturer put the wrong pump in the wrong box. But I mean, part 4027 here versus what I got F4027. I thought the other box said that too, but I mean, it says well, of course it's going to say F4027 on the old and the new, but this is what I was saying. When something has the same part number, I expect them to be the same, or this one's not. So I don't know what the F means in the part number. But either way, we got the fuel pump situation figured out. Now we just got to work on the fuel line. Alright, got new fuel line. I practiced up on my cuts, and you know, they came out pretty looking pretty good, honestly. Yeah, crazy what happens when you have the right tools. So alright, let's finally get this fuel system installed. Alright, and there's a new fuel filter down there, the new fuel pump right there. The only thing I'm forgetting is some connections here to connect it to power, and to connect it to ground here. Just need a little ring connection and a little flat connection. Not sure what it's called, but once those are all hooked up, fuel system will be good to go. And yes, I know it's filthy under here. We'll clean it up. It's one of the last things that we'll do in the off season. But when it comes to suspension bolts, you just kind of find them at the end of all the suspension arms, on top of the springs up here, below the springs, or the shocks rather, holding up the, I guess, anti-roll bar. I don't know, I'm still trying to figure out my terminologies here. And just replace them. And such as the Legend Car standard, we'll be using 1/2-inch diameter, 13-inch pitch bolts here, grade 8 bolts specifically, because I want a little bit of bend in them before they break. Because if there is a hell, it involves trying to dig out a cutoff bolt. And since Legend Cars rattle around a lot, they are very susceptible to backing bolts out. So we use these little self-locking bolts with these little nylon inserts in them, that little light color. That way it just screws onto the bolt and is a lot less likely to back out. It just needs occasional check just to make sure the bolt's tight. Alright, something I need 2 hands to do, but we took the bolt out of the top of the shock here. Yeah, we're old school here. We use the ratchets. Alright, and that is the left rear shock taken out. We'll always go through and we'll check these little heim joints here, just to make sure that there's really no play. It can still move around. Check the top and bottom. Make sure everything's all good. And not really a whole lot of play. If any of these joints need lubrication, we do have this tri-flow here. Just spray a little bit in there and kind of move it around and re-lube those joints. As for the shock itself, this one's probably good to reuse. I'll get a second opinion from some other Legend Car racers or in preseason testing, especially when we go set the car up, because they have the scales and all the setup tools and everything. But these shocks should be good to reuse. If not, I got a couple extra. But yeah, that's the bolts taken out, and set that off to the side for a second. Bomb bolt, we can kind of take a look at, see what kind of stress it was under over the course of all last year. Nothing too bad with this bolt here. It still appears pretty straight, no noticeable bending in it that I notice, which is good. Same thing with the top. This one's got, a little bit of debris up in it, which, don't know how we can see inside that hole. We can just blow some of that out, or brake clean can fix that pretty easy. But yeah, as for the bolt itself, like the bomb one, no noticeable bending going on. Irregardless, we change these bolts out no matter what, whether they're pure perfectly straight or not. We got a couple fresh 2-inch bolts here. And then, yeah, we'll just reinstall that shock. Alright, bolts are tightened back down, bottom and top, so left rear shock is good to go. And we'll pretty much do the same thing with every suspension arm here. We'll take out the bolts, replace them, replace the nuts, re-lubricate the heim joints. If there is more wrong with them, if there's a lot of play, we'll just replace them. And we'll do that for every suspension arm here. Check every suspension arm too, make sure they're all still straight and good to reuse. Otherwise, we'll replace a suspension arm. But like I said, it's a repetitive task. I won't bore y'all with replacing every nut and bolt here, but that's something good to do for both rear and front of the car, all those bolts. But yeah, just to make sure that we're set for next year, that all the bolts, they're brand new, everything holding this car together is brand new, no stresses, nothing's bent, and once you have that good platform, you're pretty much good to go for the year. Alright, now arguably the most fun that we're going to have here is going to be replacing the rear end gasket that's just right in here. Just need to take off all these bolts here. Shouldn't have to take the drive shaft off. I don't think I need to take out the rear gear either. That should be fine because I'm just replacing the gasket. But yeah. And like I said, we're old school here, no fancy electronic tools, impact wrenches, none of that. Just kidding, I sometimes use them, but here it's I'd rather my wrenches. Oh jeez. Oh, it helps if I turn it the right way. And funny thing, it just looks like some of these bolts are exhaust studs that were cut off just to fit in the rear end housing. So I don't know, that's cool, I guess, because some of these are, you see how short all the other ones are, and then yeah, there are these longer ones sticking out, but they appear to be exhaust studs that hold the exhaust pipes on. So it does the job, I suppose. Maybe I should be taking out the rear gear. I don't know, like I said, I don't know what I'm doing, so because trying to take that off, yeah, I don't know, just think about how this is all connected here. It's not going to give me a whole lot of space. No, I think I just need to take these arms off because I need to move the rear gear back some to give me the space. That drive shaft's not going to move unless I take it off from here, which I tried, and those bolts are a little tough to get off. Let me just take the suspension arms off here, and I just replaced all the bolts on them. But yeah, it's great. You can see me thinking in real time here. You know, it's times like this I question why I own a race car and put myself through this. Like, yeah, it sounded cool to, you know, finally drive a legend car and call myself a race car driver, but holy, stupid crap like this, and my lack of, I suppose, the proper tools, because I do have an impact. It's too big to get over here. It's a half-inch drive, and this is crammed in here. Oh, I'm just having a fantastic time right now. You see, this is the less glorious part of race car ownership that no one tells you about. Alright, I was trying to take this out, and it's just not wanting to come apart. So like I, you know, kind of get motivated here. It'll come apart a little bit at the top or kind of wherever I wedge it apart, but trying to push it apart, you know, nothing was happening. So I'm looking around like, did I forget a bolt or something? So, you know, I'm looking around everything, all just studs or the holes where these old exhaust studs were screwed in. Then I found a cool little something. So this is vertical. It's the only way I can get my phone over here, but you know, see, we got our studs here all taken off where one of those exhaust studs were. Stud, all of them are taken off. I looked at my gasket. There are 10 holes in them, but I only have 9 studs or nuts. So there's obviously one left in here. Now, this little, I don't even know, is in a location where it would make sense that there's another screw. There's some resin material just kind of coated on top of it. I took it all off, and it appears there is a headless bolt here. So I don't know. I think, anyway, I don't know. I'm going to keep peeling away at this, seeing what I can find out. But if it's a headless bolt in here, something to back out, I don't know, there's still... No, maybe not. I don't know. That's not a bolt right there. It's too soft. Let's see, I might need both hands for this. Alright, both left and right side axles are out, so let's see if the rear end's any easier to take apart. Okay, that works. We need sound a little bolter, so it's interesting ones. Alright, yeah, I think I figured you out. Yes. No telling what shape it was in before, but that's the old gasket. We're gonna work on further separating the rear end so we can actually install the new gasket, because I prefer not to break that one. But yeah, inside of the gear, I don't see anything broken, so that's a good sign. Not that I was concerned or anything, but there's that. Alright, managed to get the new gasket on. Now we're just gonna seal it back up, re-screw it, and finally be done with this task, and hopefully never have to see this rear end for a good while. So I probably made that more difficult than it had to be, but gasket's replaced, all the bolts are back on. I don't like the idea, because I did find out that this is just what's it called, like the gasket sealer, whatever that's called. Jeez, it's late, I'm sorry, but so I kind of picked it all out when I probably should have just left it, thinking that the gasket sealer was, you know, inside of here and preventing me from opening it. No, yeah, I just have to take the rear axle out. So, you know, who would have thought that to access the rear end you gotta take out the rear axle. Yeah, I swear I've been doing this for more than a year, but hopefully I don't have to deal with the rear end for a while, other than just changing the oil every couple races. Oh, that stupid leaking jack. But yeah, that's all done. Now I'm just gonna get the axle back on and reattach to the brake lines. I didn't mind taking the brake lines off because I'm gonna flush the whole system anyway. But yeah. And since we're gonna be taking the axles out, good practice to do, just make sure it's straight, which rear end looks like it is, or there, the right side looks like it's pretty straight all the way down. I'll do a better inspection. I kind of need both hands for it, but yeah, should be pretty good. And that's the whole rear end, fuel system, suspension bolt replacement. We do that, or we're going to plan to do that every off season here, just to make sure there's no bolts bending, make sure the rear end gasket's good to go, make sure the whole rear end as a whole is good to go. Fuel filter, you want to replace it every year anyway. As for the fuel pump, we just want to make sure that we have, you know, a new one. So should be good to go with all that. So yeah, and the off season shall continue, and keep it here, and yeah, follow along. But appreciate the support, and yeah, hope to see you all in the next video here. Thank you.